time, as a member of the Navajo Nation, I have the honor to introduce our keynote speaker today, the Navajo Nation President, Jonathan Nez, along with the Navajo Nation First Lady, Phefelia Nez. President Nez has been the Navajo Nation President since 2019. It is my honor to hand it over to the Navajo Nation President and First Lady at this time. Ekehet for coming.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're at. Thank you, Rachel, Ms. Yazi, for the invitation, and congratulations on being the New Mexico Regional President, and everyone that's on the Zoom, WebEx, or on the video. We say Yat E in our language, hello, to the folks that are on the call. And I see some Navajos that are on the call, including Alberta, Peshlegai, and Kyle, Tabaha, Chapaha, and many others. And I'm here with the First Lady, my wife, Phefelia Nez. And thank you for having us on the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society call. I don't know if you know, or maybe this was a reason for the invitation, but I guess once you're a Phi Theta Kappa, you're always a Phi Theta Kappa. So I was on the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society when I was going to school. So not many people know that about me, but it is a distinguished role that we play in our university or college education. So those of you, I think all of us that are on the call are part of that organization, the Honor Society. So keep up the good work, and we look to see you in many leadership roles in the future. And I'm from Shanto, Arizona, and we're relocated to our Navajo Nation capital, Window Rock, our family, since 6 years ago, 2015. When we became the vice president, we had to relocate to Window Rock. So it's an awesome place to be. And right now we're coming to you from Twin Arrows, Arizona. We're having a leadership meeting, so it's taken me some time to transition from that discussion to speaking to you today. We're talking about the funds that have come to the Navajo Nation through the CARES Act, the American Rescue Plan Act, and crossing our fingers that there will be a infrastructure bill, a reconciliation bill that gets approved. And there's a lot of needs in Indian country, a lot of needs in Navajo, more than $2 billion, that's obvious. But we're doing our very best to meet with our lawmakers, our Navajo Nation Council delegates, to develop a plan to help our citizens. Of course, this is due to the COVID-19, the health, the public health emergency, as well as the slight downturn of our economy. And we are wanting to bring the Navajo Nation closer to the 21st century. And I think all of our tribes are wanting to do the same. And I know that there was a question about leadership and how Phi Theta Kappa helped mold me and others and you to take that next step in leadership. And what I just encourage each and every one of you today is not to, shy away from challenges. If there's something that is being asked of you, take the bull by the horn, as they say, and take that challenge and don't shy away from it, especially in university settings. Phi Theta Kappa is premier in letting folks know that you are in the top echelon in academics in terms of your GPA and also your work at the college or university. I did community college at Northland Pioneer College. I was fortunate to have a campus close to home. And I always try to challenge our young people, to start out close by to your homeland, to your home community. That way you get to slowly transition to, your university or for your institution, grad school of your choice. Because as many people have noticed, there's culture shock, especially for Native Americans, people of color, going from one really rural community maybe, then going to university. So for me, it was a slow transition to going to school. If you want to call slow transition to Flagstaff, Arizona, where I met my wife, Phefelia. I do, just to let you know about my educational background. I have a bachelor's of science degree in political science and a master's of public administration, both from Northern Arizona University. I was working on a PhD until got into politics, and that kind of took a pause. But it's great, though, because I'm living my dissertation. Once I'm done here, I'm going to write about my experience, and I also challenge you all to log in your experience, because it'll help you remember those milestones that you've achieved, and also will leave some history, some accomplishments you can share with your children and your grandchildren and your family members. As I said, I met my wife at Northern Arizona University, and we had she'll tell that story. I'll leave it to her to tell that story and how we met. But the question, what was the driving force that propelled you into leadership? I'll be honest, I wasn't one of the most behaved individuals in grade school or high school. So don't tell anybody that. No, I'm just kidding. But there was some of the teaching that I remember as I was growing up that helped me, kind of refocus later in life. And I think many of us go through those times of self-reflection, and let me encourage you that life is tough. I'm sure you all know that. And many of us may have grown up with some tough love. I call it tough love. In Navajo, the grandparents and parents are always yelling at you and telling you to do things. Or maybe I'm the only one that got that. No, I'm just kidding. But I think our parents meant well, grandparents meant well, because they were shaping us for life, right? And that's what you all are going to school for right now, is you got prepared by your parents, your grandparents, and your community, and then now you go into academia and you remember that teaching that helps you, that guides you through your experience at the university. And always remember where you come from, because it shapes who you are into the future. As I was growing up, my grandfather was a council delegate. His name was H.T. Donnell. He represented Shanto, Arizona, on the Navajo Nation Council. I always, and the thing is that at 1 year old, my grandfather passed. So I didn't really get to meet him or, know him well, but he did help hold me as a baby. But later in life, as many of the Native Americans or all of us know, that when you introduce yourself, you usually tell them about your clans, you tell them about who your parents are, your grandparents. So when I would tell people about my parents and my grandparents, when I say H.T. Donald, they would say, wow, that's your grandfather. The elders would say, this is how he helped you. And I was like, wow, man, that's one way to leave this earth, to be known to help people and to be able to empower your citizens. And I always was very interested in politics at a very young age. So went to school, at the same time going back and forth to the local community and getting into politics. So long story short, I started out at the bottom. And I want to encourage everyone that's on the call to do the same. Yes, there is a teaching from our family members to go get an education, get the experience, get your degree, and then come home and help your communities, right? Your people, your nation. But we also need to understand that it's not an entitlement. It doesn't mean that you get your education and when you come home, you're going to be put in a position of leadership. Sometimes, even with a degree, you're going to have to start from the bottom. You might think you're entitled to a leadership position because you have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. No. What you need to do is just get your foot in the door to an organization. And then you prove them, prove to the organization what you have. And guess what? When you do that, they will lift you up into positions of leadership. You don't have to do it yourself. If you show them what you've learned, the experience you have, and apply that in an organization, they'll lift you up. And not to boast, not to seem proudful, but I just got into the chapter meeting, local government meetings, raising my hand, asking questions of the local leaders. And they're the ones who said, you know what, we need someone like you. And they asked me to run for a local political office. And then the rest is history. They moved me up from local chapter. I reached my goal of being a councilman like my grandfather. I was also county supervisor for Arizona. And then I didn't ever thought I'd be the vice president of the Navajo Nation or even the president, but it's the people who saw leadership qualities and put us into this position of leadership. And so let us remind ourselves that let's get through that door first and then work our way and show the people in the organization that you can do it. And Phi Theta Kappa gives you those tools, as they say, right, to accomplish great things. But in Indian country, we say they're giving us the armor and the weapons to fight off these monsters in our community. We call them in academia social ills. In indigenous communities, we call them monsters. That's hunger, old age, poverty, lice. You also have diabetes, cardiovascular disease, suicide, alcohol and drug addiction. And just recently, we have a new monster that has plagued our people called COVID-19. And a lot of the information that we receive helps us to combat these modern day monsters. So just giving you a glimpse, a little glimpse of our worldview, which may be contrary to what we're learning, right, in academia. And that's why it's very critical and crucial that we balance what we learn in the classroom and what we learn from home. That's where really change, true change can happen in our communities. So that is the, I guess, really the driving force that helped me get into leadership, you know, not quitting. Of course, we're going to get pushed down. We can't just stay down. I remember my grandma used to always say that when I was a little kid, you know, I trip and fall and I'll be crying, laying on the ground, you know. Today, what would we do to our kids, grandkids? We'll say, "Oh, are you okay?" You know, that's today. But those of us that remember back in the day, then people would just get mad at us. That's what happens to you. You're not paying attention. Get up, you know, dust yourself off. And now we realize that in the age that we're in, Grandma and Grandpa were right. They were preparing us for life. Even though as harsh as it sounded back then, I guess that was the resilience teaching that was being taught to us. And they never sat us down and said, "This is the reason why my son or my daughter," you know, you just kind of figure it out until you're older. But I always think that things happen for a reason. The other, before I turn the time over to our First Lady, the other question was, what leadership qualities are essential in a leader for the future generation? I think I mentioned that a bit. It's being a facilitator. It's not being a person in bossing people around, because many of you, I think all of you, are going to be in positions of leadership. Leadership means not being the boss of an organization. Leadership means being able to facilitate a discussion, utilizing the human capital, the human resource that your organization has, and to get the most out of the individuals. Because there are going to be some individuals that don't perform well, that just do the bare minimum. Then you're going to have also those that are going to always be hungry for more. And how do you balance that? How do you balance that in an organization? That's the tough part about leadership. If we had to answer, everybody in the country would have an awesome organization, right? Or an awesome government. But we have to empower our employees to be productive and hold each other accountable as well. And for me, being the president of the Navajo Nation, we have to do the same in our citizens, empowering our citizens out there to make them realize that they have the ability to change their life, utilizing some of the teaching we grew up with and some of the teaching in the universities. And with the experience that you all have in Phi Theta Kappa, go a long way. Putting those together and blending it together. Very powerful. Very powerful. And, you know, I have so much else to say, but I'm going to give some time over to the First Lady, and then I'll follow up after her. She can share her experience as well. Phefelia?
Okay. Good morning. Yeah, my name is Phefelia Nez. And I grew up on what is now Hopi Partition land and the Big Mountain area in Arizona. You know, that first question of what was the driving force that propelled you into leadership? You know, the short answer would be It's all because of him I'm here. I know.
I think it's the other way around. It's because of her, I'm the president, right?
But
All the smarts are over here. I just,
ladies, do you hear that? That's all you got to do. Just kidding. You know, when you think back to, I always think back to my childhood. You know, a lot of what I was taught was from my parents, especially my dad. I spent a lot of times with my dad, and he was very, he was the type of person that he doesn't just, I mean, he did both. He could make you sit down and give you a whole lecture, which he did a lot. And then the other part to it was he always had us involved in doing everything with him. So you're doing and I grew up in a hogan and just a regular dirt, earth, floor hogan that they built, and we grew up with animals. So a lot of times we were outside. We didn't have like electricity, no running water, anything. So a lot of manual work. And so we did spend a lot of time, and then horseback riding, going after the cattle, going after the sheep, all of that. And having no TV was a blessing. But in the process of, but he really pushed us to go to school, to do well in school. That was a big item, a big thing he always told us to do. And then of course, once I got into school, the next thing he started telling us was, you never know where you're going to be asked to serve. You just got to prepare yourself for anything and everything. And I'm so glad he shared that, because over the course of my lifetime, I didn't set out in junior high or high school thinking I was going to have a certain career path. I didn't have that. And sometimes I would think about it and I'm like, what am I going to be doing later on? What is it that I want to do? And there was just a whole conundrum of stuff, right? I was just interested in just about everything. And so, and that's not a bad thing. And now I always tell people, you should learn something from almost every discipline that you can. I grew up reading a lot just because we didn't have TV or nothing else, right? So what I used to do was, and I went to boarding school, kindergarten through 8th grade. So before I go home for the weekend, I would check out a whole bunch of books from the library. And then I got so caught up in reading, I was the volunteer person for Who Wants to Go After the Sheep for Friday, Saturday, or on spring break or through the summer. And that's all I did. I mean, nobody's going to bother you, right? Nobody's going to tell you to do go clean up the hogan or go wash dishes or go cook or whatever, go feed the dogs, all of those kind of things. And so I was like, nope, I'm going. And I just go off with the sheep and the goats, and I'm just out there with the dogs and the shitty, you just sit under a tree and you can just read for hours there. And we had pretty good flock of sheep.
so how many sheep did you lose then?
None ever. You know what? A real shepherd doesn't follow the sheep. The sheep follow you, right? So once you train them, once you have that, they never run away. They stay with you. So anyway, that's kind of how I grew up. And then just reading so many books, and over time you get to read I did a lot of like historical fiction kind of things, and then of course a lot of nonfiction. And so that was my introduction to getting to know a lot about, the different perspectives over time, and with people living in different parts of the world and all of that. But as I got into high school, it moved more towards finding good mentors, good coaches, finding good role models, and then just getting involved in a lot of extracurricular activity. I mean, I was one of those people who worked in the radio station, was on the student council, the drama club, I don't know, whatever, everything else, the cultural exchange programs, all of that. And I took advantage of all of that. And then of course, by the time I got into college, like I said, I didn't know exactly, I couldn't pin down one program that I really wanted to stick with. So I started off over here in engineering. Then I went over to the English department just because I liked writing. And then eventually I made my way down to the social sciences, and I ended up with a degree in political science and criminal justice. And then later on, I'm just now finishing up my MPA program. So And if you're going to go into public service, into working in any type of government or nonprofit, we would definitely tell you to get an MPA.
Even politics.
Yeah, politics as well, if you're going to be in any elected position. But really, you know, when I left NAU after my undergraduate years, I went into what I really wanted to do. Oh, let's put it this way. So before I met him, my whole dream was to go and work with nonprofits or NGOs or IGOs, right?
Tell them how we met
In
first.
different parts of the world. I wanted to go like lead. I wanted to lead the Navajo Nation. I was probably like some of you guys here. I was like, I'm not staying here. I'm going somewhere else, right? And so, but really, I wanted to work with like other indigenous populations in different parts of the world, and that was my dream. And then, of course, I met him, and he tells me one day, he's like, "Why do you want to go lead the Navajo Nation? I mean, you want to work with all these indigenous peoples and everything." He's like, "Our people need all that help too." So anyway, so that's how I ended up coming back to Shanto. And my next question was, well, what nonprofit am I going to work with out in Shanto? And his answer to that was, create one.
Oh, make one,
And that's exactly what we did. I mean, there's no template. Well, we didn't have one. We didn't
yeah. Well,
have
now
any.
there is, yeah.
I know now that we have a whole slew of resources and everything, everybody that we know now, but back then it wasn't like that.
Right.
So everything was like trial and error and really establishing those relationships. And you know what? Establishing relationships is never going to end.
Right.
That's another thing that you're going to have to do.
Don't burn bridges. Don't burn bridges.
Yeah. And so always remember that no matter how people are towards you,
Right.
you don't be however way back to them, because somewhere along the way, they're going to still need your help and you're probably going to still need their help.
Right.
And then, and then I figured out how to run a nonprofit organization, and everything that we've learned in MPA is involved in running an organization, because you're talking about organizational development, the structure, and then the staffing. So you're in HR, and then you have to learn how to work with the CPA, the legal, all of that. And then having project directors, doing grant writing, grant management, like all of those things, which was really good. I mean, I learned so much, I think, in the almost 10 years that I was there. And before I started homeschooling our older son. And then I became a full-time homeschooler mom. But by that time, he was you were doing county board of supervisor work and then council delegate simultaneously, which was fun for us. For me as a homeschool mom, that was really fun. I could play tourist anytime I want. And you know how they talk about homeschooling, there's always field days, right? We had tons of field days.
So we traveled all over the country, and while I'm stuck in the meeting, the Phefelia and the kids would be going, checking out all the sites. And I think they had a great time, and I just had to sit there and listen to a bunch of people talk all day.
Well, just tell them where we went and what we did in a day. But, you know, but really, I mean, if you ever get the chance to homeschool, I would say do it, because you are in charge of when you figure out when your children excel, right? Like right now, the older one, he loves to do his work in the evenings. That's when he's focused and he can get a lot done without any distractions. And so, and then just traveling, we got to see a lot of, you know, it's really different than how I did my schooling. Like when I was their age, going through, you know, you're doing like American history, right? And you're just reading about these places and just maybe seeing pictures of certain things, but to actually go to those places and then, you know, to look around and to really see what the place looks like and everything else like that. It really adds, I think, to their educational career. So that's been fun. But the other part is volunteerism. I always talk about volunteerism. That was something I started doing back in junior high. I went through high school, by college. I did a lot of that. And so I still promote that. And then of course, you know, when you talk about volunteerism, it's like you can do donation of your time, your talent, or your money. So a lot of times when we talk about volunteerism, and that really speaks to the leadership items too, though, because when we started off doing a lot of community service work, we weren't paid for that. And it's really hard to find people who are willing to do things without pay. But I always say, if you want to get into volunteering, you're going to find out what you're really passionate about. Let's say you volunteered at the library or somewhere else, you know, in the different places that you volunteer at, you're going to figure out which ones you really enjoy. And then you're also going to figure out, are you good at working with people, or are you better off working with animals? Or are you over here better off in the woods by yourself? You know, you kind of figure out those things. And the other thing is, do you enjoy being stuck in an office all day long, or do you enjoy being like, you want outdoors every now and then, or all day? And those are just the sort of things that you figure out over time. But I always say, you know, learning never ends. We're forever learning, and we should forever be growing. And then, you know, you always, no matter what career path you go on, you should always be learning from other disciplines. I mean, whether it's going on field trips, or, you know, being with different associations, or, you know, just a whole multitude of interests, just so you're learning from different groups. And that's something that I always promote. So thank you again. And I guess give it back to you.
Right. Well, you know, Phefelia and I are, of course, in a very influential position as the president and the first lady of the Navajo Nation. Of course, we get, in any leadership position, you can't make everybody happy, but you also recognize that the needs of your organization, wherever life will lead you, into a company, into a nonprofit, or any type of work, or even into elected position, you know, always remember what you've learned at home, and never forget that, because sometimes there's going to be some tough days. I hate to say this. In any position in leadership, there's going to be some tough days, and you're going to feel like, man, why am I here? Why am I in this position? Yadallah, YDL, I think they say. But then again, you always remember and reflect on what Grandma said, Grandpa said, Nali said, Mom and Dad, Auntie, Uncle said, you know, yeah, go on, keep going, be strong, don't give up. And you always remember those words, and you're like, okay, hey, I can't quit now. Just imagine if we magnify that in those positions that we're in whatever organization. Never quit. How it could be better for communities throughout the country. And you know, with Phi Theta Kappa laying a good part of your foundation, and with Rachel being there for us and doing things like this, you know, sharing, having people share to you the experience. That way you don't have to be learning, doing that on-the-job training, you know, giving you a little glimpse of what we've gone through and the challenges there are, will also help you not to go into that, do the same thing that we did, you know. That's what I mean. Don't burn bridges. Early on, I heard that by a mentor of mine, because Phefelia is right. This profession, Phi Theta Kappa, is such a small organization, and even positions of leadership is small too. Those people that are there, they will come around full circle at some time. And if you burn bridges, you know, later on, it's going to be difficult to possibly do something different for your organization. And so remember that, because Grandma and Grandpa told us that too, right? Be careful of your words. If people are at you and yelling at you, you know, sometimes you just have to grow some thick skin and just take it, because you never know, that person may be going through a situation. By them speaking that way to you is a form of healing too. As Navajos, we call it hajon. that's a reciprocal way of our teaching, of restoring balance and harmony. So thank you so much, Rachel and Kyle. Is that Jerlyn Chavez? And others, I don't see the other faces. I think the other ones are shy. But thank you for the opportunity to present to y'all. I'll turn the time back over to you, Rachel. Oh, there's Alberto. Hi, and Faith, thank you so much for the invitation to speak.
Thank you, President and First Lady, for your time today. Just by hearing the way that leadership has a role in your life is incredible to witness. We will open the time up for questions. If anyone has questions to ask the Navajo Nation President or the Navajo Nation First Lady, please do so, along with keeping in mind the resources they used while going to college. Like, for an example, as President said, he was in Phi Theta Kappa. How is Phi Theta Kappa back then compared to now? Or when asking those questions, think about it. And also it's a good opportunity since we have them online. So I'm going to open it up to questions if anyone has questions for the President and the First Lady.
I think Kyle has his hand raised.
Kyle.
Hello, thank you, President and First Lady, for joining us. My grandparents were from Sabonito. They've passed. My mom is from Window Rock. My dad is from Wide Ruins, and I grew up in Sabonito and Smith Lake. So thank you. Mr. President, we met at the Indigenous People Day very quickly. I took a picture of you. I was the gentleman that read the mayor's proclamation proclaiming the 11th as Indigenous People Day. So it was really nice to meet you. And since I've met you very briefly, I have been thinking a lot, and I don't know why this is happening, but I'm really grateful for the opportunity to meet you. If you would allow me. I work for Americans for Indian Opportunity here in Albuquerque. I am a commissioner of American Indian and Native Alaskan Affairs with the city, and ambassador to APD, Omega Delta Phi fraternity, Phi Theta Kappa alumni, Sigma Kappa Alpha Phi Honor Society, among other things. I am a U.S. Navy veteran. So I graduated in spring. Just recently, and I've been very, very involved. Everything that I've learned and a lot of the leadership skills that I've learned from the military transferred over to Phi Theta Kappa and then to UNM. So I also work with Kiva Club, Association of Non-Traditional Students, Student Veterans of UNM, and now the Native American Alumni Chapter. So it's a lot, and I really do appreciate you mentioning that, we need to put our foot in the door as a Native American. As a Navajo, I did move away. I am now an urban Indigenous Native living in Albuquerque. So a lot of the work that I've been doing with the Native Leadership Collective, and we're thinking of doing a few more things for our Native people that have moved away. And my ultimate goal is to bring people back home with using the knowledge that we gathered as students, as leaders, having to navigate the world outside our home. So thank you, First Lady, for mentioning, you have to be a good shepherd. You teach the little ones, in your case was the sheep, to recognize that you are the leader. So a lot of the stuff that I do, I'm becoming a mentor to a lot of our relatives who feel that the Navajo Nation did not provide any opportunities. So then they go to school like we all did. We wanted to improve our situations. So some of the things that I would like to do is, just get to speak with you. I cried a couple days ago saying that I'm outgrowing my mentors, and I need stronger leaders in our lives. So I'm using this as an opportunity to provide that to our students as well. Phi Theta Kappa, the fraternity at UNM, bridging all these organizations, all these things that can help our Native people return home. So my question would be, what may I do to bridge this gap between people that move away, helping them return home, and what the Navajo Nation can offer to our students as far as leadership? Because I know I am a PTK nerd, so I really do want to help those that want to return home.
Well, Kyle, that's a great question, and if I had the answer right, that we would have all our professionals back on Navajo building a nation. You know, it's all about nation building in our communities. And I guess let me go back real quick to that statement I made about entitlement. You know, we're told to go get an education, and then I think we don't really share with our children that, yeah, you get your education, but come home and start at the bottom. Because we tend to think, okay, I got my master's degree. I'm going back to the Navajo Nation and I'm going to be the director of, right? Without any real hands-on experience. And that's why we're developing a scholarship right now. And Kyle, this is an opportunity for your the people that you are encouraging, the younger generation, that we're developing a scholarship to where it's mandated that if you get money from the scholarship, that you will come back to the Navajo Nation and work for the Navajo Nation. Because that way, we already have positions budgeted or positions available so that they don't have to apply for it. College student will come back. If they received a scholarship for a year, then you give back to the Navajo Nation for a year, and we provide that position on Navajo, and that gets them in the door, right? And then they can show their colleagues and their peers, the leadership there, that, hey, keep me here and, you know, promote me in these positions of leadership. I think the hardest part is just applying. Don't get me wrong, we're doing our very best to change that protocol with the Navajo Nation so we can bring our Navajo professionals back to the nation. You know, that's just one example. Kyle, I just want to say too, appreciate your leadership and your service too to this country and our nation for the work you're doing. And I see you coming home, and I see you helping not just Navajo, but everyone in the state of New Mexico, and maybe even the Southwest, you know. And let's stay connected. I want to talk a little bit more with you, Kyle. So thank you. Do you have anything else, Phefelia?
You know, that takes me back to when I was telling that story about when I realized, like, okay, if I'm going to hang out with this guy here, that means I'm going to end up in Chonto, and what do I do there? And, you know, it's like, and I always knew, you know, if you want to come back to the nation, you either, most people who want to come back to a job that's already available, it's either with the schools, with the hospitals, or you're working for the tribe or one of the government positions that are out here. And I always try to tell people, you know, there's only so many jobs within those areas. And so I always challenge people, come back with the mindset that you're going to be the employer. Come back with the mindset that you're going to create a job, not just for yourself, but maybe even to employ others in your community. And then just working with the Community Development Corporation that we created, you know, it really involves working with the entire community, like getting feasibility studies on what's needed and, you know, what's possible. And then of course, really going after everything that's needed to make those things happen. And that's really what's needed. So when he's talking about nation building, it's easier to start within a community, something smaller, right? Whether it's your home chapter or a region. And that's really what I tell people, because the other thing that you're gonna, but if you want to work on behalf of the entire Navajo Nation, then I always say, you're probably gonna have to spend maybe a good few years out here just to really get yourself immersed in, well, the politics of everything, right? And because not every community operates the same, you know, different people have different mentalities. Some are more driven, some are not. Just getting to know how those things go. But if you can start off at a community level within just your home chapter or with a few other chapters grouped together, I think that really, and then of course, the other part, you know, you can go home with that mentality, but if you don't get other like-minded people to come alongside you, then it gets really hard. We're just fortunate enough that, you know, with like with Shanta, we had, you know, there's always that core group, but you're always reaching out to different resources. But at the nation level, that's a whole, they're doing it on behalf of the whole tribe, and you can just imagine how that goes. But it's a really good experience. I mean, if you get the experience on the nation and you start realizing what's all needed to excel and do good in any of those positions, you can excel pretty much anywhere. And it's all about just what he was talking about, facilitation, building relationships, and then really learning how to, you know, everything that organizations, just learning about organizations, right? There's a lot of psychology in there too. Just all of that, budgeting, you know, just the nitty gritty stuff, HR, how do you develop everything from the individual to the organization? So yeah, but there's a lot to learn, and it's really good stuff to know, because you get to take it with you anywhere and everywhere you're ever going to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm right now, I'm currently going to be working on some presentations to help our students just get exposed to city level, you know, like recommendations that I do with the city, or, you know, working with APD, APS, working with the Navajo Nation. I have ideas, and I would love the opportunity to bring some of what Phi Theta Kappa has taught me, and all the knowledge that I've acquired to help our younger people realize that they have power, that they have voices, that they are worthy to stay home on the reservations that they're from, that they call home, and as well as help other, you know, our brothers and sisters, people of color, you know, just letting them know, hey, you guys have more power than you realize, and that's what I want to do. And I want to take my nerd herds with me. So I really do. I want to take everybody that I meet along the way and let them know, hey, let's do something powerful. Let's do something worthy to be remembered.
Great.
So thank you for your time, Mr. President, First Lady. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rachel?
I hate to end this too. We have to pretty soon get to our next presentation.
Okay.
But if you have questions for him, you could probably contact the office of the president and the office of the vice president, and in the subject line, just put PTK presentation and let them so they know like what you're asking them about. Or I think President's going to put in his information.
Yeah, I'll do that. And let me just end by saying, I hope you get to have Alberto talk about his experience as well. I mean, we're seeing some great things from Alberto Pesce as a young man, being in local politics and being a county supervisor. You know, I used to be in that seat some years back, and he's also been doing some great work within the Navajo Nation. Younger generation stepping into positions of leadership, and that's where you all going to be. I know that you all are going to be in positions of leadership, and I just can't wait to rub elbows with you all in the near future. By then, I'll be a little older. I think life is usually full circle. We started out at home and herding sheep. And I think I'll be returning to herding sheep after politics. And it's great to have cell service available everywhere. So now you can carry a laptop or an iPad going after the sheep, and hopefully we don't lose any sheep later in life. But thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
And okay, everyone. All right, here we go. I think we got our email address. Feel free to send us an email.
Okay. So just a reminder, if you guys have any questions for President, because due to time, just email in the subject line, just put PTK presentation and today's date. That way he knows, because he gets thousands of emails each day, just so he knows. Okay. So
I do read every single email, Rachel, believe it or not.
again,
They get tired of me in the evening because I'm sitting there answering. And our constituents get blown away and they say, well, President's emailing me back. But anyway, I'll stop there.
again, thank you for coming and making the time to come today. It means a lot to our New Mexico region as a whole to have leaders from all parts of life that comes to speak to the region today.